All right. What's up, everybody? We are back in live again today to discuss a tool that Will and I have been working on for a very, very long time, trying to get it right, trying to get it perfected, trying to make it easy and simple to use. And it's honestly been, I would say, a game changer for the way that we think about stuff, for the way that we do strategy within Flow Candy for our customers. And that is the journey map. The journey map has been, we're going to dive into lots of details, but a quick overview is just the absolute best way to get a 50,000 foot view of exactly what your flow strategy is, and to really create a better understanding of the customer journey that your customers are going through as they go through your store, where they're coming in from, what flows they're getting based on, the different actions that they've taken, the behaviors they've made. And so today we're going to kind of pull back the curtain on all of it. We're going to show you exactly how to use a journey map, how to build one, all the insights that it can give you into developing a better strategy for your store. And so, yeah, I'm going to hand it over to Will. He's going to really be driving the ship today, showing you guys exactly what we do on our fulfillment team, exactly how our strategists and success managers use the journey map. And yeah, we're open for questions as well. We'll have a couple pauses in here for you guys to be able to ask any questions that you do have. And we'll go from there. So Will, you want to take it away?
Awesome. What's up, everybody? Yeah, let's jump in. So let's just talk about who this is for. So journey mapping is, first off, if you're a brand or you're a store owner, work at a store, and you're looking to elevate email and lifecycle marketing, Klaviyo, email marketing, SMS marketing, stuff like that, retention marketing, the journey mapping, this training is for you. But also, if you're like an agency or a freelancer that's helping clients with email marketing, this will be a very valuable training as well. A little bit about me. So I'm one of the co-founders at Flow Candy. I'm a former Shopify store owner myself. Over the past couple of years, I've worked with hundreds of brands, probably, or me and my team, all types of D2C markets, from apparel to beauty to personal care to health and fitness, insurance, automotive. We've worked with all types of revenue levels too, from just starting out to all the way up to, like, I'm doing 100 million, 200 million. I'm a Fortune 100 brand. We've seen all shapes and sizes when it comes to the clients we've worked with over the years. But that's not really why you're here. You're here to really learn about journey mapping. So let's just sort of sit down and talk about what you're going to learn in the next 30 minutes. So Brian sort of touched on it, but I'm going to show you how to use journey maps to identify new email flows, which could increase your email marketing sales. I'm going to show you how you can use journey maps to see gaps in your customer experience, which could help increase some of these KPIs, second layer metrics, we call them, like lifetime value, NPS scores. We're going to talk about how you can use journey mapping to reveal other opportunities with different platforms or mediums like SMS or loyalty or direct mail, and how those can help boost revenue for your brand. And then also we're going to talk about how journey mapping can really save time and how to use it as a tool to sort of share with your team to avoid like random ad hoc Slack conversations and random sort of asynchronous calls that you have to get on to explain a flow or a segment or a campaign or something like that.
The fires we all want less of.
The what'd you say?
The fires we all want less of.
Yeah. They can really help prevent the fires if you can get the team bought in on them. All right. So my promise is, a detailed view of how a top email marketing agency like Flow Candy uses journey maps to help our clients with email and lifecycle marketing, and how we use it to increase sales, so that you can basically copy it and implement it in your own store or agency to stay ahead of the competition and get more revenue. Anything else you would like to add, Brian, to the promise here?
I think the other promise is making sure they have the tools to like really do this as well. You know, where you can copy it, but we're also just going to give you the templates as well. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
You're going to duplicate exactly how we do it and go and use it.
We'll be sharing everything we share here today, and multiple times during the presentation. All right, so let's just jump in and check in here. Does this sound familiar to some of you guys? Like, you're not making enough money from email marketing, your client's not making enough money, or you're not making enough money from your flows. You feel like the sales and revenue could be up. Even worse, like you don't really have enough time or bandwidth to focus on increasing sales in these flows. And even worse, you don't even know how to, even if you had the time, you're sort of stuck. And this is sort of causing you to worry about competition that might get the edge on you. And like worst case, especially if you're working at a brand, your boss or peers around you are constantly bugging you about email marketing issues, segments, flows, which distracts and wastes your time. You don't have answers all the time. And worst case, you're worried about losing your job. And I feel like the real sort of problem here is you don't have a tool that allows you to see the big picture or show the big picture of all your flows, or the whole entire customer experience, or sort of maps out what are the next opportunities you have in email marketing or with your flows.
And one thing about that as well, Will, is some people just don't even have the strategy. You know, it's just not even in place. Yeah, it would be great to see the big picture, but did you actually think through the big picture before creating the flows? Or did you just kind of, you know, you mentioned the ad hoc stuff. Did it just get thrown together? So that really contributes to this real problem of, you know, you can't see the big picture. You don't know where the customer experience, how the customer experience is happening, who's getting what at what time. And so therefore you can never, ever try to decide where to make improvements or what to change or how to make it better. And we see this over and over and over again.
Yeah. Question came in. Yes, there will be a recording of this event afterwards. If you're watching this live on LinkedIn, the video will just remain up forever. So, and if you're subscribed to our email, we'll be sending out a recording as well. All right, cool. Let's talk about once you sort of make this shift and fix this, sort of really understand this problem. First off, you're gonna have more sales because you'll be able to find new flows to build, or you'll have that strategy that Brian was talking about. You'll have better flows because the whole exercise of flow mapping puts you in a state where you're forced to sort of optimize your flows, the ones that aren't working, which could help increase your lifetime value and revenue and conversion rate. And it's going to save you time. We already talked about this by what Brian mentioned before, where you're constantly having to put out fires. And this flow map really allows you to instantly communicate with your team, like what the flow strategy is, and like on one page. So it's really, really impactful there. So yeah, let's dive in. So journey maps, there's going to be 5 ways to use journey maps to really unlock more revenue and create a better customer experience. These are 5 tested and proven journey mapping tactics that we use here at FlowCandy every day for our clients. Every client that works with us gets a journey map. Every manager or success manager, account manager on our team knows how to do this journey mapping. Every strategy manager on our team, it's like literally one of the first things they learn. So we are literally doing this every single day. So yeah, let's jump in. So the first tactic is, well, I want to talk about like how to build these journey maps, where to build them, and how to build them fast. And one little pro tip I have for you is we really only have like 3 or 4 journey map templates, and we just like duplicate them over and over and over again. Yeah, we customize it based off the client's customer experience or customer journey and stuff like that. But really, we are just copying the same template over and over again. So it allows us to sort of deploy these journey maps fast. And we use them we build them in a tool called Whimsical. And I'm going to link in a second to where, so you can download all of these. And typically right now we have 3 that we're mostly using. In general, this is like a general flow map or journey map for just a standard general store. We have one for skincare companies, and then we have one for subscription companies. Because we found that those stores typically have a different unique journey. I think we have one for apparel somewhere out there too, but sometimes we just use the general one for that. And let's sort of dive into it right now. Is there anything else you wanted to share, Brian, before I dived into this?
No, let's start here, and then we'll circle back to some of the other stuff.
Cool. So I'll pull up just a general journey map. And how we use it is, first off, like there's really only 5 customer journeys that really every store has. Okay. I mean, you could classify it differently. There's different parameters, but at the end of the day, to keep it simple, there's really 5. There's one is the prospect journey. So this is the journey that your traffic is on to become a subscriber. So think about like your lead magnets, your pop-ups, stuff like that. That is the very first touch point normally in a journey map. So any form you have on your site. Once you capture them and convert them into an email subscriber or even like an SMS subscriber, they eventually enter this non-buyer journey. So this is the journey, the set of flows or automations that try to convert somebody from a prospect or a subscriber into a first-time customer. So a lot of times we call these like foundational flows, most of them at Klaviyo. This is where a lot of email marketing agencies, I feel like, spend a lot of time on with flow development. So I'm talking about the real flows that drive a lot of revenue, like your welcome flow or pre-purchase flow, your abandoned checkout flow, browse abandonment flow. We have a couple other flows in here like site abandonment flow, Hail Mary flow, back in stock flow. Some of our clients use quizzes. So a lot of times what we'll do is, not everybody is using all of these flows. There's even a non-buyer nurture. So we'll just sort of get this live and then delete some or leave them sort of in pending or suggested. All right. Once you get somebody to become a buyer, they are now a first-time buyer. All right. So that means literally if they're a Shopify store, place order equals 1 would be the segment in Klaviyo. And the journey they're on now is you're really trying to big picture, you want to convert them to become a repeat customer, but also you probably want to spend a lot of time collecting maybe some UGC, maybe doing some surveys, maybe also nurturing them and making sure they're really understand or they're really familiar with the first product and there's no flags with their first order. They're not going to put in a refund and they're really like sending you signals that they're going to repeat. And a lot of times this is attacked in a post-purchase flow or a cross-sell flow, upsell flow, review request flow, bounce back flow. But there's also other flows like win-back flows, sunset flows, subscription upsells if you're a subscription store, first purchase anniversary. So a lot of stuff like this can sort of nurture people to the first purchase or to the second purchase. Once they become a repeat customer, all right, your goal is to really enrich the profile and help them become a VIP. So when I mean enrich the profile, I'm really trying to collect a lot of zero-party data on them. I really want to try to maybe not intimately know them, but your repeat customers, if you log in and you look at their profiles in Klaviyo, there should be a lot more data there than just like your standard prospect. And typically, the more zero-party data you have there, the more you can sort of personalize your marketing moving forward. So we are doing a lot of surveying here, trying to get them into affiliate program, trying to get them to leave user-generated content, and then also trying to nurture them in a couple flows to make them become a VIP. And VIP, there's a lot of different nomenclature or parameters around what a VIP is. Just to keep it simple, I'm just going to say a VIP is anybody who's placed an order more than twice. So 3 times, 4 times, it could be 10 times. There's different like sub VIP levels, but typically with the VIP, what I like to see is I like to consider this person now like a raving fan. These are people that if you were to go to a cocktail party, they would talk about your brand just sort of organically. And the data also backs it up. They've placed order multiple times. They have higher AOVs, higher lifetime values. They have left reviews. They have super dense profiles with a lot of zero-party data. And we're really trying to get to nurture them. We're trying to, again, make them become an affiliate, maybe help them refer a friend, maybe even sort of like giving them special access to things. There's loyalty programs that might come in sooner than the VIP, but there's a lot of different tactics. It also kind of becomes bespoke at this level too, depending upon your brand.
That's something I was going to mention, Will, is that once you get into this repeat customer journey, the VIP customer journey, even into the first time purchase, this is where things get really, really specific to what your strategy is. If you have a loyalty program, if you're really heavy on maybe capturing micro influencers that are like that have purchased from your brand a lot, you're using like Gatsby or something like that. Depending on what strategy you're using, the whole point of this area is to turn your VIP customers or your super fans or whatever you want to call them, turn them into referrers. So you want to start using that traffic to start generating more acquisition. And so a lot of your flows at this point will start to refer to that. Okay, what kind of content can we get from them? What kind of new purchases can we get? What new customers? What referral program do we have? And so, we've been talking about that. This is the kind of general map, but it really, the most important part here is the swim lanes, is really starting to, and what I mean by the swim lanes is the columns. So, you have the prospects, then to the non-buyers, to the first-time buyers, repeat customers, VIPs. That's really where you should start focusing your time and seeing, okay, do I have something that is moving people from one swim lane to another? How are we getting people from this point to this point? And then that way you can start to see, okay, here are some suggestions from the general journey map, but there are going to be other things, even in the pre-purchase journey or the first-time buyer journey and that kind of thing, that are unique to your store. And so all of this this is kind of just the bare bones guideline that gives you that take on it. And will kind of give you that launching pad to then start to customize it and give you a little bit more perspective depending on what's important to you. And one more caveat to it as well is like each of these swim lanes or the cohorts could change as well. You might not, if you're a subscription brand or a consumable that is, fast moving, you might not want to move people into a repeat customer, cohort until they've purchased 3 or 4 times, or until they've been on subscription for 5 or 6 months. What really is going to tell you that is you want to find the inflection point in the data that actually says where it makes a difference. So if somebody if we see that after somebody purchases 3 times, they likely purchase, 8 times and they stay for the whole rest of the year on subscription, that's where you're going to want to focus your time. You can find that data by, doing it very manually or using a tool like Lifetimely or something like that. But all of this needs to be customized based on what your particular needs are. But at a very basic level for stores that are kind of just getting started, you can almost kind of just follow that straight line across the board here. Will, if you'll show how like from the welcome series, through to the post purchase, then to a repeat purchase, then to, so you can kind of just follow that straight line, and that's the bare bones, other than maybe like the abandoned checkout you might want to add to. And then the complexity moves forward once you have a need for it. At Flow Candy, you probably have heard us say this before, but we're very much a walk before you run type group. We want to make sure that you're covering the ground that is easiest to cover first, and then making sure that you can you expand from there. So yeah, I think this is a great first step on explaining the journey map. Why don't we move into talking about how to actually use it once we have it kind of established well?
Right. Okay. Just a couple more things I would add in. I mean, that's a lot of insight there. I think one thing you said too was like walk before you run. And one thing I tell people to do is focus on your prospect and non-buyer journey first. This is where like a lot of the opportunity is initially. Some people want to jump all the way to VIP, but like a lot of the volume and just the numbers are here to make an ROI.
Mm-hmm.
And then one other resource I wanted to share was if you have like a actual if you don't know what these flows are, we have a flow library which I'll share in a second that just outlines every single one of these flows that we're talking about here, even more flows, and there's presentations on each one, and this will be available to download at the end. But that's another way you can use this journey map. But yeah, let's give an opportunity for questions. Does anybody have any questions on the actual journey mapping, like how to build a journey map, like what a journey map is? Any questions on what Brian and I just talked about?
While we wait and see if any come in, I do have one question that I think would be great to get your insights on, which is, you kind of mentioned focusing in on the prospect journey and the pre-purchase journey or the non-buyer journey.
Yeah.
So if you go back to that slide you had two before, which was the identify next flows to work on. So this is great. We can kind of see what we have and what we don't have. How do you actually prioritize which ones to do first? Because as a brand owner, I've got a lot of stuff that's going on. I don't have a lot of bandwidth. I kind of have to pick and choose. I might have time to do like one new flow per month.
Yeah.
How do I make sure that I'm doing the one that's going to be the best move for me, like right now?
Yeah. So I think we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, like these statuses. But I will say like one way that I prioritize it is, we do an audit, like we would audit your flows and we would see if there's, first off, like, do you have the foundational flows? It's kind of like the straight line that you talked about. If you don't have foundational flows, like you need to focus on that first. Secondly, are your foundational flows like actually performing and converting? Because a lot of times people will set them up and the logic is wrong, the filters are wrong. So I think that's like really where I would go first. And then once you've kind of mastered that, then you can get into some of the more advanced stuff.
Yeah, that's great. So starting with, kind of what I'm hearing there is like starting with the higher traffic flows first, and then moving to the ones that have less people going through them just based on the kind of funnels that people are moving through.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And Rick has a question. He's asking, what's your approach to layering in campaigns? This is something that I'll at least take a crack at first, and then you can add whatever color you want, Will. But when you're looking at that, the swim lanes there and the different cohorts, all of those individually, that's where I would start if you want to start expanding segmentation past your engaged segments. So, at a basic level, everybody should be running 30, 60, 90 day engaged segment. That's where you send most of your campaigns to. Well, that non-buyer cohort, the first-time buyer cohort, the repeat purchase cohort, those are all segments that you should have for campaigns as well. And so there you can take each of those and start to craft campaigns around this particular place that they are in the journey. So that's really, I think, the first step if you're moving into more like advanced segmentation is to start segmenting people out by where they are in the buyer journey, which corresponds with where they would be within the journey map as well. Anything else you want to add to that, Will?
Yeah, I mean, I think that most people with campaigns, we don't necessarily map them on the flow map, like promotional campaigns and stuff like that, new product launches. But eventually you will get into like more journey-based segmentation. I think that's kind of what Brian was talking about. It's a little bit more advanced. And it would really come back to what Brian talked about earlier, where it's like, if you can understand those five swim lanes, like prospect or non-buyer, repeat buyer, or first-time buyer, repeat buyer, VIP, those five swim lanes, and you create segments around that, and then you get granular with how you are sending campaigns to those segments. It's definitely a more advanced tactic, something I wouldn't recommend right away, but that's kind of how we technically layer it in. All right. Yeah. So again, you can download the journey map templates I shared, the flow library I shared. We're going to be sharing some other stuff, including all the slides. You can download it all at this URL, or you can just scan this QR code and go there. All right, let's move on, Brian. Let's talk about how we can use flow maps to identify gaps in customer experience. Because it's another thing that I think a lot of brands, when they're first starting out, they're not thinking about. But when you start working with the $100 million brands, like this is a big initiative for them. And it's like customer experience. How are we optimizing this? And I found, Brian, that journey mapping is probably the best exercise to do it.
100%. There's no question about that, because you can actually, without doing the work, there's no way to be able to tell where they are, especially once you get into the point where you have 35 flows. Sometimes I open a Klaviyo account and I'm just like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. And then you ask somebody where people are going or what flows they're getting, what are on, why they're on. You'll go and say, hey, look at this flow. And they're like, oh, I didn't even know that was running, and so there's after, especially with big businesses, the other thing about it is there's turnover, right? So you have somebody who built the foundational flows 4 or 5 years ago, and then, 4 people that have updated them since and have added their own 2 cents, because everyone thinks they need different flows and things like that. So you have this, what I typically call like a Frankenstein account, where it's just like, hey, it's been papered over and papered over and papered over. And so identifying these gaps is so tough. And really the only way to do that is to like take a step back, really do a thorough audit, and go through this process to actually see what is in here and what do we need and how do we change it? How do we make it better?
Yeah, there's a lot you shared there. I think that to add on to that, the first point you made that I think is important is when you log into Klaviyo, like the dashboard, it's great at seeing like revenue and, like how much money your emails are making, but it's hard to get the entire big picture of the whole entire customer experience, like every single touch point that your brand is making, because sometimes not all emails are in Klaviyo, so I think that was a very good point you made. And another thing you made too, like the Frankenstein account thing you brought up, is like, yeah, especially if you guys are working at bigger stores where there's turnover, people leave, like you inherit Klaviyo and you're like, what in the world is going on here?
Yeah. We recently had the CEO who had just taken over, a like 8-figure brand. You're kind of reforming the entire team. He was speaking to Will and I, and he told us, he was like, if you could, we showed him the journey map process, and he was like, if you could plug an API into Klaviyo and just spit all of this out immediately, I would be throwing money at you right now. And because it's so true, it's like, it's a very big pain point. And not only, the other thing about this is like journey mapping is not an easy process to go through when you have all of that stuff. It takes a while to kind of sift through that information and kind of uncut, because you have to go into every flow. You have to look at it's not always clear just from the trigger, like what the flow is supposed to be doing. You have to go and look at the filters. If it's not documented correctly, you have no idea, what this could be. You have a few people that, you have 4 or 5 different flows that are being triggered off of a new subscribe. It's like, why do we have all of that? What's happening here? And so, yeah, it's a very common problem that we're seeing.
Cool. Yeah. And one thing that, that I found that sort of helps with this, another tool that we use is the value chain. And so there's the flow map and the value chain. Like using these two together can really like get things tight and clear on what's going on. And tracking those second layer metrics that we've talked about, Brian, like lifetime value, NPS scores, ticket response time, UGC collected, referrals, like things that are like these second layer metrics that Klaviyo doesn't track, that are really important to you when you go through that journey mapping exercise. And so we can sort of walk through one right now, Brian, or is there anything else you wanted to say before we did that with the value chain?
No, let's jump into the value chain for sure.
All right. So let me pull one up here. So here's one we have, and I'll just sort of say a few things on this. So how we like to think about value chains is we like to pulse on them every week or maybe once a month. So it's like you and your team are sitting down and talking about these KPIs. Somebody is responsible for the KPI too. This is really important. So it's like I might be responsible for tracking new subscribers, but Brian is responsible for tracking first-time customers. And we normally like to set targets too. So we're not just like blindly tracking KPIs. It's like we actually have like a target that we're trying to hit. So I found that these, just like setting the stage there, like this is really important. And if you want, like, I'm just showing the retention side, and you might have to find the KPIs that make sense for you, but also there's a whole traffic and conversion side. If you're a store owner, you also want to be tracking, okay, like what is our ROAS? How much traffic are we generating every day? Like how many people are we getting into the checkout? And what is our average order value and stuff like that? But yeah, I mean, is there anything else before we go even deeper into this, Brian?
Yeah, I mean,
like I missed.
The value chain is deserving of its entire own training,
Yeah.
And I think that's probably coming. I think it would be dumb not to put one together, because transparency here, guys. Like we started value chains not for ecom, but we started it for Flow Candy. That was really where we like cut our teeth on this process, and it has fundamentally changed the way that we manage our own business. And then we kind of started to think like, how would this work with the journey map process and with ecom brands and helping them to kind of look and see how things are being tracked month over month, because Klaviyo is not a great answer for that. There are some other dashboards that I feel like put a lot of emphasis on like acquisition numbers and things like that. And at the end of the day, one of our values is simple scales, complex fails. And some of those dashboards are just too complex. You really just need a straight line of, hey, this is the number we're trying to hit. Did we hit that number or not? And the one other thing that I'll say, I don't know how much deeper you want to go into value chains here, but kind of coming back even to what Rick asked a little while ago of, how do you layer in campaigns, or how do you, how does that kind of fit in with the journey mapping? The question I asked earlier of like, how do you decide what flows to build first? It's where you're not hitting the targets here. If you could zoom in a little bit for us, Will, I'm not sure how well everyone can see it. But if you see there, so it's like we have new subs, the monthly min is 500 and the target is 1,000. Oh man. All right. So we're at 187. We're trending pretty well for that, but let's say this week one was at 20. Instead of, the 150 or so it needs to be tracking. We're like, all right, well, we know we're really off for that number. So this isn't it. Now we know we need to focus on trying to convert more of our subscribers. Another factor of this would be traffic. How much traffic are we actually getting that we can even get that amount of new subs? But still, you're able to see we're way under our monthly min. So what can we do to solve for new subs? What are the different tactics we can use? And then, the same goes for first time customers or, repeat purchasers and things like that. How many people are actually moving into that cohort per month? And, you can get real fancy with it and even say like, if the month total is less than the monthly min, then that number is in red. And so therefore you're able to make decisions and know exactly what numbers need to be changed. And that gives you a better idea of how to use everyone's limited bandwidth. Where do we really focus our time? What numbers are actually going to move the needle? But again, this is something that is very custom and will be very dependent on your own metrics and what is going to be a positive effect on your brand. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that's pretty much everything I've got on value chains without going into the rabbit hole that it could be.
Right. The one thing I'll add in, the final thing I'll add in here is like the value chain is tracks how you create value at your store, and so it should literally track how someone goes from never even hearing, like being a prospect, if you go back to this swim lane, all the way to becoming a VIP. And that's what it is. So it's like you start with your traffic and conversion, and then eventually you get into retention, and it's like, how many new subscribers are we collecting? How many first-time customers are we getting? Repeat customers, VIPs. What's our lifetime value? What's our trailing 12-month revenue? So these are some suggested KPIs, but the most important thing is it tracks like how someone becomes a customer, and then how someone becomes a repeat customer, and then how they become a VIP. And yeah, I mean, I guess like to bring it all back here, when we were talking about identifying gaps in the customer experience, I think Brian hit the nail on the head, where you're tracking these targets, and wherever your numbers are down, that's where you focus on. And when it comes to customer experience, a lot of times I found like people are like, oh, our customer, like, I don't know why, like our, or like, I don't know why they're not reordering and stuff like that. We're doing all these flows and stuff. And it's like, well, what's your customer experience like? Let's like, when was the last time you sent a survey out? What was their NPS score? Like, how fast do you get back to your customers when they email you? I've logged into so many stores where they don't even get back to their customers, and it's like no flow, funnel, or tactic can fix that, So this is a very rough overview of a value chain, but that's sort of the tool we use to really also map with the actual flow map, how to really optimize the customer experience. So let's go to some questions on the flow map or the journey maps or the value chains. Again, you can download all of this here, everything we just shared. Does anybody have any questions before we move on?
I think we're probably good for now. If there will be another question section in a little while here after a couple slides. So if you have any, think about them now, throw them in the chat so we're ready to go for the next one, and we'll get to them then.
Cool. Let's talk about how to use journey maps to sort of flag and optimize underperforming flows. And this was sort of what Brian added, this sort of status column to the journey maps. And I think it really helps get people clear on what we're doing, what our opportunities are, what's next. And the reality is, like, how we use this is we will color code the flows in the journey map. So let's say, and again, you have to know how to, I'm not going to get too much into like how to audit your Klaviyo flows. So I'm just assuming that you've got that covered. You have to know how to audit this stuff. But if you do, let's say you got your pop-up pretty well optimized, you can come in here and, oh, it's not letting me, hold on. I got to log into the actual editor. Yeah.
While you're doing that, one thing I will add there as we're talking about it. So the dotted line one, it's kind of like a gray. It's it's the color that all of them are right now. It says open suggested. That's just the nomenclature that we use for like hasn't been built yet. Essentially, that doesn't exist in your account at this point. Red would be something that you have, but needs to be fixed. So will kind of go through once we get in here and show you how we kind of go through that process. But this is a great way. This is the statuses are more, from an agency to client perspective, or, if you're using this internally from a like marketing team to executive perspective, it's a great way to give an update on where we are. So it's just like, hey, let's look at, this week to this week. Last week, this one was yellow. Well, now it's in blue because we're working on it. This one that was blue is now green because we finished it. And so this is really just a more communication tool to be able to talk about, okay, what are we working on? What's next? How are we doing this? What does our strategy look like from the top down? So yeah, go ahead and give us some examples, Will.
Yeah, let's say we've run like a bunch of split tests on our pop-up, okay? You probably don't need to keep running split tests. You can probably mark this as green. If it's like, if it's got a conversion rate of 5+%, like you're probably doing a pretty good job. But, let's say the pre-purchase flow needs to be fixed. So you could flag that as red, And so I think Brian brought up a good point where it's like, if you are an agency, all right, dealing with clients, or you are on a larger team dealing with executives who are not in the email sort of department day to day, like this is a great way to sort of push back when they start coming at you like, hey, why aren't we doing this with the pop-up? You can pull up the flow map and be like, hey, we've optimized the hell out of that pop-up. Actually, the real problem now is the pre-purchase flow, and we flagged it. And actually, this week we're going to start working on this. So I'm actually going to move this to pending, like if you say it like that, crickets, instantly they're like, okay, cool. Great job. Sounds like you know what you're doing. And
especially if you have the value chain to back it up.
Yeah, especially if you have the numbers to back it up through the value chain. Yeah, like it's just like people just, it's really, really good at getting people like, because both of these things are just one page, and it's really easy the flow map can be a little hard to digest, but it's definitely easier to digest than the Klaviyo dashboard reports or like individual flows themselves. If you try to walk like somebody on an executive team through that, you'll get stuck for 45 minutes on a call. And then they'll just be like, well, what does this trigger mean? And what does that filter mean? And what is this, And it's just like, it opens Pandora's box. While this keeps things nice and tight, the value chain keeps things even tighter. So yeah, I mean, that's like how we like to use them. We like to line them up where once things are optimized or complete, green. When things are sort of next or we're working on them, they're either pending or blue. It literally, a lot of times it'll just match. We use ClickUp. It'll just match the statuses we have in ClickUp. That's just how we use it as an agency. You don't have to do it like that. But that's one way. And then red, well, Brian sort of touched on it. Gray or beige is sort of, hey, that's just a suggestion. And red is like, hey, we need to fix this. This is broken. This abandoned checkout flow, the trigger's broken, or the filter's broken. Or, I was logged in the other day and I saw somebody had no delays in their abandoned checkout flow. So they had 4 emails going all out at once. So again, you have to know how to audit this stuff. You have to know like the ins and outs of Klaviyo. So we're assuming that you kind of know what I just mentioned. And if you do, like, this is really helpful. Cool. So that is like how to identify underperforming flows, how to sort of flag them. We kind of walk through an example. Does anybody have any questions on how to use the statuses of the flow map, how to sort of use it to sort of prioritize what to work on next?
I haven't seen any questions come through just yet.
Cool.
There is a little bit of a delay between what we're saying and LinkedIn, though. So, it's kind of hard to get around that. But again, if you guys have questions, throw them in the chat. I'll flag them and let Will know, and we can jump into some of those questions. We'll just stop what we're doing. So let's keep going, Will, and we can wait and see if something comes in.
All right, let's talk about sharing journey maps, because this is like a problem as well. So I wanted to talk about how to, because it's like one thing to do the journey map, but then you kind of show it to somebody and then it gets lost, or you do it one time and it's like something you did once, but you don't have like a workflow around it. You're not coming back to it every single month or every single week, really. Yeah, we'll talk, like, I guess Rick asked a question about the pulling metrics for the value chain, so we'll get to that in a sec. But sharing journey maps. So how we do that is again, what we like to do is this is just how we run things at our agency. We're a little bit higher ticket, and we put all of our clients into our Slack account, or we do like a Slack Connect or something like that. And when we do it, we pin the flow map of in the client's actual Slack account, so they can and we remind this to them on the calls too. And so they can instantly click on it and be like, oh, this is the flow map. And then they can share that with their team or their executives, and they can sort of show, okay, this is what we're working on. This is what is coming next. This is what's optimized. This is what's in progress. So you can see this is one of our clients. Everything is sort of optimized, but we're working on the pre-purchase flow, and we're working on added to cart flow. So that's kind of how we use that, how we share it. You could also, if you're using it in like Asana or Trello, you could also pin it. Like we have it pinned sometimes in ClickUp for our team. We don't necessarily always add clients here. Let me see. But yeah, we'll have the journey map sort of linked here in the actual task management software as well. So yeah, that's how we're sharing that. Anything you wanted to add there, Brian?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward on like, making sure people have access to it, and easy access is something that I think is overlooked a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's just the sticking point. Will, you talk about this all the time, that just getting adoption is one of the toughest parts. And so what I would encourage people to do, if you really want to have this being used by your clients or being reviewed by your executives, is making sure that it's a center point of the meetings you have together. Every time that you have an opportunity to bring up the journey map and to walk them through how to use it, you should. If you want feedback on something, I would suggest even record a Loom about whatever it is that you're trying to get feedback on. I know that's something that we do really frequently as well. You just want to make sure, even you can give somebody all the tools in the world, and we as marketers, we as people that are on the ground actually doing the work, know how valuable these tools are. But not everybody on the team is gonna get that right away. They're not going to understand fully like why it's so important to have this kind of vantage on the flows and understanding what the strategy is. And so you have to be the advocate. You have to be the champion for this stuff. And so make sure that you're finding the time to explain and not just assume that people are going to actually use it once you build it. I think that was half the battle as we kind of got journey maps moving within FlowCandy. It took us a long time to like find the right tool that was simple enough to use. I've seen people suggest like Figma and FigJam and stuff like that for a way to build these out instead of like Whimsical. But the thing I like about Whimsical is like there are not that many buttons. There are way less buttons than there are on Figma. And so there's a lot less that people can kind of mess up or move around or things like that. It's way easier to use. And that really is going to be kind of the sticking point here, is making sure that it's easy to use and people actually have access to it and understand why it's important.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, I think that's a super important point. Because like whenever I log into Figma, I'm like, what's going on? So, okay. Rick asked a question. How are you pulling metrics for the value chain? So let's pull that back up again. So new subscribers, so I normally build these off segments in Klaviyo. So I will literally be like, okay, how many people subscribed, signed up for an email list or this particular email list this week or this month. Ticket response time is a metric that you might find in like your ticketing software, like Help Scout or Gorgias or whatever tool you're using there. First time customers, it's a segment. It's like how many people placed order equals 1 this week, basically. NPS scores, you might be using a tool like to track this. There's a ton of NPS or survey tools out there. So normally we would just check that. UGC collected is basically like if you're collecting video reviews, like how many video reviews did you collect this week? Referrals, you might have a referral software like Referral Candy, or there's tons of them out there. But like how many referrals did we get this week? Repeat purchase. Brian kind of touched on this, like if you're like a fast moving consumer packaged good, I think was the example he used. It might be different, like the actual parameters here, but to keep it simple, I say repeat purchasers is like placed order equals 2, and VIPs equals placed order equals 2 or more. And then lifetime value, I don't know if we want to get into that, but that's there's a lot of different ways to calculate that. And there's different tools that can do that too. So it just depends on how you're calculating that. Trailing 12-month revenue is from your accounting software maybe, or your Shopify sales, like just seeing how much you've done in revenue the past 12, like from day to day. So like March 13th to today's March 13th. So March 13th, 2023 to March 13th, 2024 would be like how you calculate trailing 12-month revenue. And where are these targets coming from? That's a great question, Krista. They're like, I think Brian touched on it. Like you need to spend some time, like this could be a whole webinar in itself on value chains. Like it takes some reps to figure out what are the targets. I will say as an agency owner, or just as somebody who works at an agency, the onus is on you to really set realistic targets, or push back when people are like, hey, I want to do, $15 million a month in sales, but we only have, 150 people coming to the site every month. It's just like the physics just don't make sense there, So like you literally have to sort of get some experience on when to sort of push back. And there is sort of an art to setting targets. I will say, if you don't know, like be conservative and just go look at the numbers that are currently there now and start there, just tracking those numbers and then getting used to that, and then maybe setting targets. It's also common to adjust targets too. So that's sort of my experience setting targets. Anything, Brian, you would add there?
Not really. I think it just like you really hit it. I would put some pressure on your clients as well, because you can't be held to something that they don't really know either. You know what I mean? They have to agree. They have to understand why you're tracking that target. They have to be bought into that target being the right target. And so I would make sure it's a conversation that you have with them, maybe doing some legwork first to say, hey, where are we going to agree on what this is going to be, and kind of choosing a location as to like, okay, this is where we're pulling our number of first-time customers from. What do you think is a good number for here? This is my suggestion. It has to be something you work with them, and then you have to know what's on the other side of the value chain, because this would be like the retention value chain. There's an acquisition value chain, as we talked about. You kind of have to know what's on the other side to be able to make informed decisions here. So yeah, I would just as much education as you can as possible on like what's realistic.
Yep. Great question. Cool. All right, let's do our last tactic here. How I also like to use the last sort of thing we like to use these flow maps for or journey maps is sort of mapping out new mediums. We kind of touched on it earlier. Not every email or lifecycle marketing journey or tactic or strategies is in Klaviyo. There's other things you're doing outside of there, or there's new platforms you want to bring in to integrate with Klaviyo. And these sort of modules that we add in, this is a great place to sort of use them to sort of enhance the flow map or the journey map. And some common ones are like direct mail, SMS, loyalty, returns, transactional emails. A lot of people don't realize that. Hey, I have like all these emails Shopify is firing out every time someone becomes a customer or cancels an order. So like, and again, like it's hard to map all of that out on one page. And that's sort of the beauty of the journey map. And, if you go in and you opt in and you get this, you'll see we have these modules, and we're constantly adding some in. I would say the most common ones we're doing are these sort of post-purchase transactional emails that Shopify sends out, and then these sort of shipping tracking emails that you would get from a tool like Wondermint or Aftership. There's a few others now. But I found that like almost every store is using these, and most stores, once they reach a certain level, they start sending these shipping tracking emails to really get that like Amazon like shipping experience almost. And that stuff is not in Klaviyo necessarily all the time. And we will literally just copy these modules and add them in below sometimes, like down here. Anything else you wanted to add in there, Brian?
No, I think that this is definitely advanced journey mapping for sure. Getting to this level, it's great. It's a great way to be able to continue to use those swim lanes in a way that's going to expand your customer experience and expand your customer journey. So I think there's going to be a really, really good bridge between the two of like, okay, well, here, this is a metric we're trying to improve. We kind of hit our heads against the wall for so many times now with trying to optimize the emails. And now we're getting to the point where we need to now add another channel or something like that. And so you can kind of see these numbers start to be a little bit more evident. What you're doing is a lot more evident, so you can make a justification as to why you're going into another channel, because that's something I see a lot as well, is people just adding channels or adding different tactics before they actually, know what's going on and why they're doing what they're doing. And, so this really should be kind of the basis for all of the decisions you make. This plus the value chain really is actually going to show you what you're doing, how it's having an effect, and then if you need to add something, where you should be adding it and what you should focus it on. And so these modules are another part of that.
Cool. Awesome. So I think there were a couple questions here. And again, you can download all of the resources shared here if you have not already. But Daniel asked 2 questions. Can you talk about how your day-to-day email newsletters tie into these flows in your journey map? So I think Rick asked a similar question earlier, and we talked about that. Initially, like a lot of people, when they first start out, a lot of stores and brands, they're using like engaged segments, so they're just sending to the whole list. They're sending like promotional emails and stuff like that. Product launches. It really doesn't overlap with the journey map. But I feel like eventually you reach a stage. At our company, we call it level 3, where you will start doing journey map. You will start doing customer journey based campaigns. And what you should do at that level is you should have segments for every single one of those swim lanes that Brian was talking about earlier. The prospects, the non-buyers, the first-time buyers, the repeat customer journey, and the VIPs. And then you might be sending calibrated emails specific to those segments. This is a very advanced tactic. I found a lot of brands don't have the workflow to do that just yet. But what they do, where I recommend you start, is at least have like a non-buyer segment and a first-time buyer segment. Because again, those segments tend to be large, and a lot of times you can get a pretty good ROI there by just sort of sending out like more, day-to-day email campaigns specific to these first-time buyers, specific to these non-buyers, where you're really trying to get them to move them to the next bucket or swim lane. So I hope that answers your question.
I think based on the second 2 questions you added in there as well, Will, if someone is in an automated flow, do you keep sending emails to that segment, or do you use the newsletter as an automation starter? So, coming back to this, like, how do you layer in the day-to-day stuff is like, maybe the deeper question is just like, are you using smart sending? Are you like preventing people from getting campaigns if they're in a flow for that journey? And typically the answer is no. We're not preventing them from getting that. There might be an occasion where somebody gets, a couple emails within 24 hours or something like that. But at the end of the day, especially if one of them is hyper personalized in terms of a behavior that they just made, such as an abandoned checkout or something like that, it's really not that big of a deal if they're getting multiple emails in one day. I don't think that anyone is going to be super offended by that, and so we're not really pulling people out or like having too much logic behind, if they're getting this email, don't get that. But if that is something you're worried about, that's what the smart sending button is for. And so if you're not familiar, on pretty much every email, whether it's a campaign or a flow, you can turn smart sending on, which prevents them from getting multiple emails within a certain time period that you're actually able to set. I think the default is like 16 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if that's really a concern for you, you can turn smart sending on for everything. And then that just makes sure that every 16 hours they're only able to get one email. But I wouldn't be overly cautious about people getting multiple emails, because the thing is that they're getting these automations when they're showing intent, and that is the most important time in a marketing journey or in a sales journey, is when somebody shows intent. As soon as somebody raises their hand, you want to be talking to them. You want to take advantage of that attention that they're giving you, because you don't know if it's going to come back. And so, the reality of them getting 2 emails from you in a period of intent over 24 hours, that's good in my opinion, because typically the rule of thumb is like 7 impressions before somebody makes a purchase from you. And so that could be multiple impressions that maybe they open one email, and then 3 or 4 hours later they open that second email. You get 2 impressions in that few hours rather than just one. And so I wouldn't be overly cautious. I wouldn't kind of turn these things off and use smart send all the time. I would just think about what type of customer you have, and if you're being thoughtful in terms of how you've set up these automations, and you're not sending 20 campaigns a week or things like that to all one segment. And if you're not doing that, then I think no harm, no foul.
Yeah. Smart sending is the easiest way to do it. Another solution could be, I've seen people do this. I don't recommend this, by the way, because everyone I see tends to screw this up. But one solution would be to add profile properties at the end and the beginning of the flow, and then create segments on that sort of maps like who is in what flow, and then exclude them from your newsletters. But it's so complex. People either screw up the profile properties, they forget to create the right segments, or they screw up the segments, or they forget to exclude people in the newsletters with those segments. And then, like Brian,
creating a problem when there isn't one.
Yeah.
Like that's exactly, there's not a problem there. You either use smart sending or just send the email. That's just be okay with it and be smart about how your overall strategy is working. That's just work for the sake of work. So
yeah, it's making things overly complex.
Yeah, but we'll follow up, Daniel. If we didn't answer your question, we'll try to do the best we can, and see if there's anything else we can add to that. But let's keep going. We're over an hour here now already, so let's try to wrap up here.
Cool. Yeah, let's wrap it up. So just real quick, like sort of the old way of doing things, if you guys are not doing journey maps, was, first of all, I don't have a journey map. I don't even know what that is. I don't know how to create one. I don't know the tool to use it. Because of that, we're probably losing sales because we're not mapping our customer journey. We have no strategy, and our flows are underperforming. And worse, we're just like wasting time communicating about flow strategy randomly in Slack or places like that. It's just taking up way too much time. And my promise to you today was to show you that detailed view of how we at FlowCandy, top email marketing agency, uses the journey maps to increase clients' sales and sort of better map their customer experience. We've given you everything too, so you can totally copy it, implement it in your own store. If you're a freelancer or an agency, you can go and implement it with your clients to sort of keep adding value to them and help them get more sales. Anything else on the promise, Brian?
No, I don't think so.
Cool. And just to wrap up, like the 5 tactics, how we use journey mapping, just to sort of quickly summarize it, is we use it to map new flows we're going to build. We use it to map gaps in your sort of overall journey. And we talked about how we use the value chain there too. We also use it to sort of flag underperforming flows, or like organizing and prioritizing which flows we're going to work on next. We gave a lot of tips on how to use the flow map to share the overall flow strategy for when you get pushback from leadership or managers or other clients and stuff like that. It's like a great tool that can sort of easily show them, give them the 30,000 foot view right away. And then we talked about how you can use it to plan out new modules, new platforms, new mediums that you're going to add into your sort of lifecycle marketing stack. Anything else that you wanted to add in, Brian?
No, not
Cool.
here.
Yes, just there will be a replay going out. If you're watching this, you can always come back to this event. It is recorded forever on LinkedIn. All right, so now that we kind of went over that, you guys do have a choice to make here. So in the next 48 hours or over the next 48 hours, my team and I, Brian and I, have set aside some time to do a free strategy call with anybody. We will personally work with you about the challenges you're having with journey mapping, email marketing, email design, Klaviyo flows, campaigns, segmentation. We can do it all. It's not just me and Brian. We have a full team behind us that can help you. We have full-time developers, copywriters, strategists, designers. So we have a full team in-house here that can do a lot of this stuff. And I guarantee you, if you book this call, you will get 110% value on it no matter what. We're going to sit down with you, Brian or myself, one-on-one. We're going to actually dive into your store, your data, and we're going to get you crystal clear on the problems you're facing so that you can take your email marketing to the next level, whether it's with us, with your own team, or even like another freelancer or agency or something like that. No matter what, you're going to get crystal clear. And we're going to give you that step-by-step game plan. And it's, again, totally free. All right. And after the call, you'll be able to literally take that, hit the ground running, and start working on it with you or your team right away. And I just want to remind who this free strategy call is for. So if you are a Shopify or e-commerce or D2C brand that is using Klaviyo and is looking to scale and drastically improve your email marketing. If that sounds like you, I want you to go ahead and book that call with us at www.flowcandy.com/free call. Again, just a little bit about FlowCandy. Our mission here is to help 10,000 brands master Klaviyo and lifecycle marketing. We've worked with all types of brands. We're Klaviyo focused. We play the long game. We're not just an agency, but we teach it. That's why we're on this training right now. And our team is the top 1% team. We only have mostly A players on our team. And again, I just want to remind you guys why we're doing this. It is our mission. We see a lot of brands struggling with it. It personally bothers me every single day. I think it bothers Brian. We get up and we talk about it every day in our stand-up calls about how we can better help brands master Klaviyo. And if it's a good fit, if we're on that strategy call and it's a good fit and you feel like you want to work with us, we will certainly maybe give you an invite, but there's no pressure to do that either. It's really all about setting that time to really map out the strategy. So if that sounds like you, I want you to go and apply right now. You can just go to flowcandy.com/free call, or you can sort of scan this QR code and it'll take you to an application that'll take like about 30 seconds to fill out. And then we'll be in touch with you after that. So again, www.flowcandy.com/free call. And just a reminder, if you're not interested in free call and you just want to download these resources, you can totally do that too if you have not already. flowcandy.com/download journey maps. Also, you can just scan that QR code and you'll quickly be able to sign up and download them.
Yeah, just a couple things to add here. Will kind of mentioned that our free strategy call right now is really for e-commerce brands that we can kind of directly help with their numbers, with their journey mapping process. But I know there's a lot of freelancers there, a lot of agency people that have been watching or listening or consuming some of this stuff, and we really are working to try and find a way to help you guys too. We want to make sure that we're helping to teach, because our goal is to help 10,000 people master Klaviyo. We say brands, but we want to help everybody get better at doing this stuff. It's been super, super exciting today to see that, we've had 50, 60, even 70 people in here watching the webinar. People are still here an hour later. And that's just amazing, because it really fills my cup knowing that we're actually helping some people today. And going forward, I just want to make an announcement to make sure you're following Will or following myself. You're subscribed to our email list, because we're actually working on a totally other show, if you will, that we're already recording episodes of, that we're going to be launching. You've maybe seen Will's breakdowns that he does, or the creative breakdowns that I do. We're going to be deep diving on some brands and recording full long episodes of exactly what we see as to why those brands work. And so we'll be launching that in the next month or so. So keep an eye out. Make sure you're following us. Make sure you are subscribed to our email list if you want updates on that, because our goal really here is to just give you as much value as possible. Make sure that you have all the stuff that you need to be able to look into some of these brands, to look into the strategies that the best brands are using, and be able to implement that on your own stores. So yeah, drop us a message as well if you have any questions, or if you have suggestions for content you'd like to see us do as well. We're happy to do that. Happy to even chat or answer specific things you need help on as well. Our emails are just Brian@flowcandy or Will@flowcandy.com. So if you want to shoot us an email, we are happy to be a resource whenever you need it as well. Share whatever we have. We're around. So yeah, let us know what you need, and we're around, and we're happy to help.
Awesome. Good stuff. All right. Thanks again. And we'll be in touch and see you on the next one. Later, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.